Welcome back to another video, guys. I wanted to go over another deck tech that I made and show off this cool partner brew that I came up with that is not exactly breaking boundaries by any means, but I wanted to show off my particular build of it and show you guys my cool equipment that I added. It definitely changed a lot since Final Fantasy came out, and I think this deck can be viable even in CDH, but it is a bracket 4. So let me break down the commander so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here instead of being ambiguous. I have Ardenn, Intrepid Archaeologist, and Rogra, Son of Rokha. Rograk is basically a 0 mana 0/1 with 3 keywords. And Ardenn is a 3 mana 2/2 that says beginning of combat on your turn. You may attach any number of auras and equipment you control to target, permanent, or player. It's very important, as we'll get into later with our equipments, that there are very specific interactions that you can do with both the auras and equipment in this deck. And Rograk coming down on turn 0, well turn 1, and having First Strike, Menace, and Trample are very important keywords to put our opponents on a very fast clock. So let's get into our equipment. These are some really cool cards. Some of them you'll probably notice immediately as like, yep, that goes in this deck, and other ones will be like, ooh, that's kind of cool. So let's start off with Sword of Fire and Ice. Everyone knew that this card was probably going to be in here. It's a 3 mana equipment that says equipped creature gets +2/+2, has protection from red and from blue, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you can deal 2 damage to target creature or player and draw a card. This is a sweet way to protect our Rograk, as well as dealing 2 and drawing a card is a sweet combat damage trigger. It keeps our opponent's blockers in check, as well as getting rid of any particularly important creatures out of play that have low toughness, and keeping our card advantage up in Boros is important. Strength Testing Hammer, 1 mana. When it's equipped and the creature attacks, you roll a 6-sided die and the creature gets +X/+0, where X is the result. Then if they have the greatest power or tied for the greatest power, draw a card. As I mentioned previously, having card draw on our equipments is going to be our main source of staying in the game, with red and white not having very much card draw. We're gonna have to rely on some of our equipment for that, as well as if we get to roll high, we'll also get a huge trampling Rograk coming at our opponents. So sweet little card here. Conqueror's Flail. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control, and when it's attached to a creature, your opponents can't cast spells this turn. This is a sweet way to give our Rograk a little buff, as well as preventing spells from being cast, so that way there's no shenanigans that our opponents try to pull on us when we try to kill them. Wrecking Ball Arm, 2 mana equipment. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 7/7 and can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. This is a very sweet equipment when it's equipped to Rograk. We cheat all of our equip costs with Ardenn, by the way, so we don't even have to worry about the equip 3 or equip 7 or whatever. It's going to be a 3-turn clock with just this equipment alone, and with Menace and can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. It's just going to be basically unblockable. Blackblade Reforged, it's a 2 mana legendary equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control, and it kind of has the same equip cost as the other one. This is just going to be a big Rograk trampler. Every land drop we hit makes this a bigger threat. Buster Sword, 3 mana. Equipped creature gets +3/+2. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Then you may cast a spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the amount of damage dealt without paying its mana cost. This is a sweet way to keep our card advantage up, as I mentioned previously with the Sword of Fire and Ice, as well as get to cast something for free from our hand, as we're going to be doing lots of damage. Colossus Hammer. This is kind of the equipment of the deck. Creature gets +10/+10, loses flying. Equip 8. Yeah, just cheating that equip cost and only have to paying 1 for the actual equipment itself to give Rograk +10/+10 with his Trample and Menace. It's a 2-turn clock with just this, and we have many ways, as you'll see, to find this equipment in specific, as well as there are others. Skull Clamp, 1 mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/-1, and whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. This is what I was talking about earlier when we had to pay attention to specific text on Ardenn saying that we don't just equip things to our stuff. We can equip Skull Clamp to our opponent's creatures. So if we already have all our equipment on Rog, we could just move our Skull Clamp over to our opponent's Orcish Bowmasters or their Esper Sentinel and just get that out of here and draw 2 cards. It's so good. And then Chainsaw. This is kind of a cool one that I found. It's 1 in a red. When it enters, it deals 3 damage to up to 1 target creature. Whenever 1 or more creatures die, put a rev counter on Chainsaw. And a creature gets +X/+0, where X is the number of rev counters on Chainsaw. I'd have to imagine that in a multiplayer format, there are going to be lots of creatures dying, especially if you're playing against a token deck, where they're going to be throwing stuff in front of Rograk to survive. So yeah, he's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I like it. It's a sweet card. And it killing a creature when it enters is a nice bonus. Then Aetir and Priven. It's a 6 mana legendary artifact equipment. A creature has base power toughness XX, where X is your life total. If we're able to get this giant equipment down, we are just going to be one-shotting people with our commander. Masterwork of Ingenuity, it's a 1 mana artifact equipment. You may have it enter as a copy of any equipment on the battlefield. For a small fee of 1 mana, we could have an extra sword, an extra buster sword, extra Colossus hammer, whatever you want, you name it, we can copy it with Masterwork of Ingenuity. Same thing here with Sculpting Steel, except it can copy any artifact in play. It doesn't have to copy an equipment. So we can copy one of our equipment, which is why it's in this section and most likely will, but we could also copy a mana rock, we can copy a One Ring. There's quite a few other things that we can copy to get our ball rolling. Moving on to our tutors, these are going to be very important to find the equipment for the right job. We're going to start off with Goblin Engineer, 2 mana, 1/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle. Then you can pay a red and tap and sacrifice an artifact. Return target artifact card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is a good way to recur our blown up artifacts and equipment. And he also gets to tutor for 1 and put it in your yard to start off with. So just so he's not as big of a removal magnet, I wouldn't pick like your best equipment, your Colossus Hammer or something like that. I'd pick something more innocuous and then just they'll probably let it happen. And then he'll stick around later on whenever they blow up your other equipment. You can just get it back with him. Next up, Enlightened Tutor. 1 mana, search for any artifact or enchantment, reveal it and put it on top. Can't really get too much better than there. Gamble. 1 mana, search your library for any card, put it in your hand, then discard a card at random. Those are our standard Boros tutors. Steel Shaper's Gift, 1 mana, search your library for any equipment and put it in your hand and shuffle. Then open the armory, 1 in a white, search your library for an aura equipment, reveal it, then put it in your hand, then shuffle. Next tutor on the list is Kellen the Fey-Blooded. 2 in a red for a 2/2 legendary creature human fairy, and we're specifically looking at the adventure side for a sorcery. It's basically an open the armory as an adventure, and on the other side Kellen is a double striking creature that gets bigger for each aura or equipment attached to him, so he's an excellent backup plan if Rograk gets killed. Next is Stoneforge Mystic, 1 in a white for a 1/2 core artificer. When it enters, search for an equipment, put it in your hand. Then you can pay 1 in a white and tap it to put an equipment from your hand onto the battlefield. So this would be a good candidate to cheat in that 6 mana equipment, equip it for free, and then attack for a KO on a person. Then Cloud Midgar Mercenary, double white 2/1. When he enters, search your library for an equipment, put it into your hand. Then as long as he's equipped, if an ability of Cloud or an artifact attached to him triggers, it triggers an additional time. So he's also a good backup plan. If our Rograk gets killed, we can put swords on him and have them trigger twice. There's a couple other equipment in our deck that work really well with that second line of text there, but mostly Cloud is in here just to get an equipment into our hand. Next, we're on to Clearing the Way. We have a couple spells here that either remove something of our opponent's or protect something of ours, or maybe even does both. So let's start off with Path to Exile, a standard white exile spell for creatures, and they get a basic land. Swords to Plowshares, they get life instead of the land, but exiles the creature. Lightning Bolt, 1 mana, deal 3 to any creature or player. This is good to finish off a player or kill a very problematic creature for us. Wear and Tear, You can cast both sides or just one to destroy an artifact or an enchantment. The deflecting swat, it's usually free because both our commanders are very cheap. It could deflect a removal spell back to our opponents. It could deflect a counter spell and save our spell off the stack. It's a very versatile and very good spell in these colors. Red Elemental Blast and both Pyroblast, as you'll see next, counter a blue spell or destroy a blue permanent. The counter spells are the biggest worry for us. We don't want any of our equipment or our important creatures being countered, so saving these for those specific interaction pieces would be good, as well as destroying Rhystic Study because that card's annoying. Then moving on to Reprieve. Return target spell to its owner's hand for 1 and a white, and you draw a card. This is a sweet way, especially with, as we'll get onto, I do have a few stacks pieces in here. With Rule of Law effects, this is a good way to bounce an opponent's spell and then they can't do anything else for the rest of the turn. It could also bounce a really big mana threat that our opponent invested all their mana into, like a Psych Rift Overload or a Hullbreaker Horror. Just put that back in your hand and I'll draw a card. Then Avian Interrupter, 1 white, 2/2 flash flyer. When it enters the battlefield, exile target spell, it becomes plotted. Then spells your opponents cast from graveyards or exile cost 2 more to cast. This is a white counter spell of sorts that also serves as a stacks piece later on to just tax our opponents from casting stuff from graveyards or exile. Moving on to our stacks pieces. Just got a few of them in here so that way we can slow the game down and make it on our terms of bam, you're dead, bam, you're dead, bam, you're dead. So, Deafening Silence. Each player cannot cast more than 1 non-creature spell this turn. This is the cheapest Rule of Law, but it only affects non-creature spells. So any decks that are on our game plan just playing creatures will be unaffected by this. But for 1 white mana, it's really hard to resist an effect like this. High Noon, 1 and a white. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell, but we can sacrifice it to deal 5 damage to any target for 4 and a red. This is the cheapest true Rule of Law that has ever been printed, and the ability to sacrifice it when we don't need it anymore, or if there's something really problematic, it's just super good. Archon of Emeria, 2 and a white for a 2/3 flyer. It has the Rule of Law text on it, as well as non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. The addition of non-basic lands entering taps really slows down fetch lands, as well as it being a flyer makes it a good candidate for a backup plan to start hitting people with our equipment. Ethersworn Canonist, 1 and a white for a 2/2. Each player who's played a non-artifact spell this turn cannot play an additional non-artifact spells. That basically boils down to you can cast as many artifacts as you want in a turn, but any non-artifacts you can only play 1. Our deck is piled high with equipment and mana rocks, so this kind of works to our advantage of us being able to double spell, but our opponents most likely will not be able to, and if they will, it's stopping them from winning the game. It's just allowing them to deploy a talisman or something like that. Drannith the Magistrate, 1 and a white for a 1/3. Your opponents cannot cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. This stops a few important things like Underworld Breach, and it also stops people from casting their commanders, which is a really mean thing to do, but when we're in Boros, we gotta take what we can get, what's powerful in our colors, because we know that our opponents are not going to be playing fair to us at all. Aven Mind Sensor, 3 mana 2/1 flash flyer. If an opponent would search your library, that player searches the top 4 cards of that library instead. I have historic terrible luck with this card, of me always flashing it in on someone's tutor, and they still get what they want anyways. Or they get something even better than they were thinking of when they cast the spell. But that's just me. You might have better luck with this card and completely hose their opponent's demonic tutor or their fetch land if you're mean. Then Magus of the Moon, 3 mana 2/2. Non-basic lands are mountains. This is an effect that we are building around in our mana base, but our opponents will not be building around it. They'll be playing maybe 1 to 5 basics, and they will get completely wrecked by this. If they're not playing red, then they're not going to cast any spells. It's going to be a not so fun time for them, and we have Blood Moon itself as well. Moving on to some utility lands, and then we'll close out the video here. Starting off with Minas Tirith, it will enter tapped unless we have a legendary creature, but shucks, we got a 0 mana commander and a 3 mana commander. This land will be coming in untapped. And we can draw a card and activated only if 2 or more creatures attack this turn. As you saw, we have a lot of small aggro beaters that are good candidates for our equipment. I didn't even get into some of them that are in this deck tech, but there's Esper Sentinel, Ragavan, Ranger Captain, some silence creatures like Voice of Victory, which have Mobilize. There's a lot of cool creatures in this deck that if Rograk gets answered, you can still put your opponents under a lot of pressure. And in Boros, we need every single bit of card advantage that we can get, even if it's in our land base, and it costs us 3 mana to do so. A Ganjo is a sweet way to clear a problematic attacking or blocking creature. Rograk has Trample, so you can, if they think that they're blocking enough, you can channel this, blow up that creature that they blocked with, and finish them off, as well as it just being an untapped white source. Arena of Glory enters the battlefield tapped unless we control a mountain. We most likely will always have a mountain, and we can pay a red to exert Arena of Glory, add 2 red, and if that mana was spent to cast on a creature spell, it gains haste. Notably, we could use 1 of the red mana on one creature and 1 of the red mana on the other creature, and we'll have 2 creatures that have haste, but this is most likely to recast Rograk with haste, go to combat, Ardenn trigger, put all of our equipment on them, and finish that player off who originally killed the Rograk. Urza's Saga, this is a wall of text that basically says, makes colorless mana, we can make blockers or attackers that are good candidates for our equipment if we are running on low on creatures, and the 3rd chapter allows us to search for an artifact card with mana value 0 or 1 and put it on the battlefield. This notably gets Colossus Hammer and Skull Clamp, as well as Masterwork of Ingenuity. They are sweet equipment in this deck, and having this ability on a land is so powerful. Shatterskull Smashing, this is a removal spell that is an untapped red source on the back. Sundering Eruption, destroy target land, its controller may search your library for a basic and put on the battlefield tapped, and creatures without flying can't block this turn. This serves 2 great purposes for us, as well as just being a land on the back. It destroys problematic non-basic lands. If your opponent's got an annoying Cabal Coffers, an annoying Nykthos, an annoying Gaia's Cradle, get that out of here. You can get a basic land instead, or maybe not if we have Avid Mind Sensor out. And the added ability of not having creatures without flying not being able to block means that our Ragrak can just swing in unopposed and take someone out. So this serves 2 purposes in our deck, and it's very good MDFC. Legion Leadership, 1 in a hybrid Boros for an instant until end of turn, double target creature's power, and it gains first strike. Our commander already has first strike, but being able to double his power, it might just be able to get us over the finish line a little bit earlier than our opponents were expecting, and it does make both colors on the back as a tap land. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. The deck list is in the description. Let me know your thoughts and what commanders you'd like to see me cover next, and I will see you next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.